and what can I do so that my root can be acknowledged? Because we living in a part of Africa where, as you said, somebody said it here, that it was not a Berlin conference, it was a Congo conference. The things that happen in Congo, if you read them, if you come to hear them, you can cry. Even up to today, things are still happening in Congo. And that colonization, that taking up the root of people, where people start to live a life of, for you to be accepted in society, in community, you must be a certain way, of which put you so far from who you are. And it's a life of where some people do not even know who they are. And they cannot even transfer who they are to the next generation. It's become like a shame. So for me, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to sit and be in my thought, because I want to reconnect to who I am. Thank you.
That was so powerfully said, because it aligns directly into the first question that we have for Sompisi, is really just talking about, from a Black consciousness perspective, what did the Berlin Conference do politically and psychologically to the African continent alone? So PC, the floor is yours. And then for Mom Patricia, right after that, we have a question around, as someone born from Congo, how do you interpret the legacies of Congo in shaping contemporary displacement and instability? So it aligns exactly with what you have prepared for us. Thank you to our first two speakers.
Yes. Thank you so much, Warrior Queen Bronwyn. And once again, my love and respect to everybody who has just spoken, right? And I just in conference tried to do was for us to never connect, right? That there must not be any possibility of us coming together and connecting. And we must not underestimate the fact that we are connecting in this manner today from various parts of the Black and African world. It's an important thing, and we must build on it, because did not succeed, and our efforts may not be perfect, but it is important that we understand that just the fact that we are gathered in this manner is something that is supposed to make our warrior ancestors smile, right? But what we do after this meeting, it's important for us to understand that the gathering of criminals, mass murderers, and rapists that happened in Berlin did not have to do anything with a particular country, right? It was not a gathering where they gathered to deal with a particular country. When Otto von Bismarck and others, the US sponsored a lot of money, by the way, for that conference to happen. It was essentially, if you follow, just go back in history, it was a continuation of the agenda, right, that people like Napoleon had when they wanted to stop what the Haitian Revolution tried to do, right, which is dismantle the global system of white supremacy. Remember what Napoleon said. One of the things that Napoleon said is that his project to attack Haiti had nothing to do with the military campaign, but it wanted to stop the possibility, right, of having a situation in the world where you have Black people emerging and undermining the system of white supremacy globally, right? Now, the Berlin Conference had absolutely the same agenda, which was to continue the, breaking down the march of Black people coming together and becoming a sovereign people, not just in Africa, because it's also important for us to remember that we are a global people as African people, because the mistake that is often made is that it confines us to the African continent. We travel to the world long before Europe was an idea. And our history should never start with slavery. Slave departure. And it is very important to understand well family, right? And in the same way, what happened in the Congo must also be connected to what is happening to Haiti currently, right? What is happening in Haiti, but also what is happening to a place that we don't speak about, which is called West Papua in the South Pacific, right? It is a continuation of the global violence of white supremacy against us. So history is not repeating itself when it comes to us. History is a continuation. There has never been a break for over 2,000 years. We have never had a break. We have always been under constant attack. And the Berlin Conference, Haiti, remind us that we continue to be trapped in what some of us call a race war.
That struggles that we face in our communities, in our countries, is actually connected to a larger transnational issue that we face in our context. Over to you, Mom, Patricia, just giving us context about the displacement of our Congolese people and then what that means for us today. Thank you, everyone.
What we should understand about Congo is rich in mineral resources. And Congo has rubber, caoutchouc, so that's the French word. And if you go deep in Berlin Conference, the reason of them having that conference was to make sure that each and every European country that was present to the conference has its own territory. So they own their territory. And make sure that the trade is, what is the word that I should use? The trade is fair. Mm-hmm. And having all in place so that they can be, I don't want, the word would be, so that they can take, which is not taking, so that they can steal peacefully. No one is accountable to no one. Now, having all those put in place, they quieten, they make people quiet by killing them. Is related to time, because the whole problem that we're having in Congo is just the extraction of minerals. Yes. What is happening in Rwanda and Congo is just the colonizer that are behind those things again. And it seems to be it's a Congo and a Rwanda. But we understand, is the game played long ago and it continues up to now. And those are the, how I would call them, the tactics that the colonizer use. They divide people so that they can reign. Mm. And those things are working very well in a country like Congo, where you have a lot of ethnies. Mm. On the Berlin conference, one of the consequences was disrupting of borders. Because the borders are disrupted, because the religions are disrupted, because the tribe are disrupted. The people who were together now, they separated. You become this side, and you become this side. Why? Because they want to reign on them. They create those troubles so that they can be free in whatever they're doing. And if you look up to now, all those things are continuing, and people are using in any sphere as much as that can pay them. Even the politics now in Congo is just all about where do you belong? Which tribe are you from? And the people who could, I will give you this example. We have what they call a space Grand Kasai. So the colonizer come and take that space called Grand Kasai, divide it in two, call one Oriental and the other one Occidental. Those people are one people. Why did they divide them? So that they can reign easily. And now the people who are in politics, they're using the same formula. And that allows them to move and get whatever they want, as long as they serve the colonizer. Thank you.
Thank you. That touches so beautiful on the principles of extraction, separation on the continent, and certain elements that we obviously need to make sure of that we do not obviously repeat. And that's what is important for us as people from the continent and from this land. And then, so now I want to go over to our panelists, Pijamato and Mam Moses, in really just unpacking from a Pan-African perspective. What does or how does Garveyism respond to the idea of separation and partitions on the continent? And then also to Mam Moses, what does the Battle of Adwa represent in global African consciousness? And why is that for us important, especially for young people to know? And why is the idea or the history around the Adwa revolution also so silent? Why are we silent about it? And why are we not using that as a means to organize in our countries and in our spaces today? Pijamato, the floor is yours.
When it comes to the question of Garvey, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and partitionism, I think anyone that has ever listened to a speech of Marcus Garvey or even the Red Garvey has heard Garvey say something about the captains of our own ship, the masters of our own destiny. So for me, the lesson that I extract in this is that as a native people, as an African people, emphasis on like we need to basically the pride of being an African people, unified African people, right? So we need to stop dictating or allowing foreign forces to dictate our perception of ourselves, our ideologies, and more so the borders that differentiate us, not just geographical borders, but ethnic, cultural, and linguistic borders. To not allow foreign forces to dictate the borders of African people. So if there has to be borders on the African continent, then the borders have to be defined and refined by the people itself. So for me, I will always say that language is the most important key factor that not only builds the human being, but unifies the people. Language was the first thing in any spiritual discourse. Language is a thing that connects the person to the community and the land simultaneously. So if we utilize language as a premise to establish these borders upon the African continent, then we will realize that there is no realistic differentiation between African peoples. You realize that Zimbabwe is the same as South Africa, Namibia is the same as South Africa, Botswana is the same as South Africa. Even linguistically, there is linguistic similarities between the ancient Kemetic language and the Khoisan language family group, which consists of more than 40 languages. So that you'll realize that there's no real difference. There's only pragmatic sameness upon the African continent. Yeah. So yeah, that is my point upon the how Garvey responds to partitioning, and also how I think, because Marcus Garvey in his time was a very radical person. Garvey did say every nation must govern itself
Yes.
with equal justice, equal resources. But that's why for me, in this era that we live in, people have a tendency of misconstruing philosophy, and Marcus Garvey's radical philosophy is easy to be misconstrued. That's why I feel that we need to amend Marcus Garvey's philosophy, and also to realize that Biko's Black consciousness is in Biko's time a contemporary form of Garveyism. And so we need to, I suggest that we unify Biko's Black consciousness and Garvey and amend it to a contemporary society with language being the primary core essence of a unified Africa that we aspire to. Thank you.
Okay, Gangans. PJ Morio, powerful words that we need to hear about Garveyism and why it is important to unify Black consciousness in our context. Mom Moses, I know you were ready. I know you were ready. Fire.
And to be so I'm clear that I'm answering the correct questions that have been posed. This is about the Battle of Adwa, right?
Yes.
And the impact on global African consciousness, the silence around it. Why?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, the Battle of Adwa is about victory. That's the first thing. And it also is about gender, you know? Why? The Battle of Adwa was the first attempt by Italy, who had been promised at the Berlin Conference, although they weren't part of the partition. Great Britain had promised Italy that they could get Ethiopia. So now we see some connections happening here, because Italy now decides that they're supposed to get this victory because it was promised to them. And it was part, remember, capital of Italy is Rome. So the Roman Catholic mean universal. So this is where them tie in religion and socio-economic. You can't separate all of them. Because now them come with the lamb to the slaughter, the sheep, because them want the conquering lion, which is the symbol of Ethiopia and Ethiopianism. And that is what is supposed to rule the world ultimately. So how the gender come in now? We have Emperor Menelik II, who the 225th ruler from Menelik I, who is the father, grandfather of, from Solomon and Makeda, the queen of Sheba. So we get Emperor Haile Selassie coming to fulfill prophecy that from the line of David, whose son was Solomon, would come in the last days, the conquering lion to sit upon the throne of King David and the children of the 12 tribes of Israel. Because John was told in Revelation 5:5 not to weep when no one was found in the earth, under the earth, to open the book of these days and to loose the 7 seals thereof. God said the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah will prevail to open the book. So now we see, what is this doing now? Emperor Haile Selassie gave us the victory speech. Him said, even in the 20th century, and we are going now beyond the 20th century, because we're in 21st century, David will still slew Goliath. Because nowhere with all of Europe back in Italy was little Ethiopia with its, bow and arrow and its backward barefoot warriors supposed to survive the genocide that was inflicted. But now, Emperor Menelik, having the choice of who he can choose for a wife, became the 5th husband of Empress Taitu. And Empress Taitu was the mother of Ethiopia's freedom, to keep Ethiopia free, because she it was that organized the females to be the nurses and the soldiers for those that were on the front line, and they were right there, Jehovah's. And then when Great Britain was on top with them sophisticated weapons, shooting down and killing, she says, all right, man, we just go and cut off them water supply. And when they cut off them water supply, how long you can do without water? Jehovah's. That was the strategy that won the Battle of Adwa. And it came from Empress Taitu and made Ethiopia remain the only African country never ever colonized. And Ethiopianism, because we're talking about South Africa, from Cape to Cairo, it was the continent of the empire Ethiopia. The Indian Ocean in the border down there in Durban of South Africa, before they named it the Indian Ocean, was the Ethiopian Ocean. So not only does Southern Africa have the cradle of civilization, you know, also the history of having, like Ethiopia, the skeletons of the oldest human beings ever found on earth. And once again, it's gender, because it's females they found. So the silence is part of institutionalized racism process and strategy. So the first thing they wanted to do was to prevent I and I from learning to read and write. Because if we read, you know, people are talking about white man write the Bible. It's 66 different books. Them take away all the books. And, you know, that was it. All King James did was authorize that they could. They had wanted the Kebra niggas from Ethiopia, and Ethiopia said, no, the glory of the kings of Ethiopia have to remain separate, because we are a royal people. We are the ark. Africa's royal kingdoms. You know, people want to talk about United States of Africa. Which state? Africa is made up of royal kingdoms. All African countries. So this now for the youth is that they have an identity of being victorious warriors. That it don't matter who the enemy is, who the foe is. Them could have modern weapon little more. We know how to go underground and fight guerrilla war that them can't win. Jehovah's. That's why we are warning them. This is the deals. When institutionalized racism have been revealed, and it will not triumph anymore. I and I are here to uphold Empress Taitu and the balance of Emperor Menelik as the female fire soldiers on the front line. We are lioness. No touch we cub, no touch we. No touch we king the lions, no touch we. We can't have it no more. For these few words, give thanks. In this unscrambling of Africa, we're putting it forward together. Unity is the only acceptable solution, said the father of African unity, Emperor Haile Selassie. So unity is the only solution. Blessings.
Blessings, blessings for that fire, for the fire, for the spirit, for everything that you've articulated, and also the importance of honoring our empresses on the continent in making sure that we are able to stand and we are able to be organized militarily, we are able to organize spiritually, and we'll also be able to organize politically, because that is what is important and what our people do not want us to remember. Thank you so much for that fire, Mom Moses. So over to Snyder Martin, and then also Shanae Vilander, which is online. Just to Snyder, how does Adwa inform reclamation work and the work of the indigenous today? And then also to Shanae, from an indigenous wonders perspective, how does cultural continuity resist colonial fragmentation? And again, speak in the essence of who you are as a person and as a being and what is happening in your context. Thank you for those who have joined us online.
Thank you, Bronwyn and Mother Moses. There's many segues into that conversation. But obviously, the basis and the starting point is continuing that legacy. Shanae earlier mentioned speaking from the oracles of our ancestors, and we are those living oracles and the embodiment of those oracles. And I believe some of those oracles are in the room with you currently, So in beginning that thread, I want to do a shout out, as we said. I want to do a shout out to some of the oracles from our generation. I want to shout out the spirit and the legacy of Bessie Head, the spirit and the legacy of Fatima Mir, the spirit and the legacy of Belinda Martin, the spirit and the legacy of Mary Magdalene, the spirit and the legacy of Krotoa, the spirit and the legacy of everybody who technically calls themselves a mother, and more particularly an African mother. Since we are the baarmoeders of this planet, we are the primordial womb of everybody who's populated this planet. So for me, that's an important starting base, and a starting point, and it's an eternal fact that can never be revoked, can never be denied, and can never be written out of history. Since that is the big national and international dialogue, if one really, really wants to be honest and true to themselves about the debates and the issues that we're facing. The issue that we're facing is one of sovereignty. And if that sovereignty is in question, at stake, compromised, it means African women are compromised. And then if I drill down further, as we see currently playing out in the Cape, and as we know currently playing out in this country, the identity of the so-called Kwa woman, or the so-called colored woman who is a Kwa woman, is basically compromised, is at question, is under threat. And in that spirit, I believe it's important for us to be able to, in the tradition of oracles, rewrite our narrative and take back our story.
Yes.
There's a big leadership vacuum in South Africa currently, and for all intents and purposes, the most astute leadership seen in the world, even if you reference European countries, currently are countries led by women. Look at Namibia, for example. President and deputy president are female. Look at the shifts and changes in that country within a matter of months. And look at the state of the nation. If women's health, empowerment, agency, positioning, parity in terms of pay and salaries, if that is not addressed, nothing will ever go right. Ever, ever, ever. Because we are then carrying that epigenetic memory of lack, disenfranchisement, slavishness, beggardom. We carry that over to our children, unfortunately. And in South Africa currently, based on creating a poor class, the Kwa woman, the so-called colored people, have now been forced and compromised to become that poor class, purely based on the fact that the writers of this illegitimate history don't want to be reminded that once history is rewritten, the table and the pyramid turns completely upside down, and the first will become last. And the first currently becoming last in their limited scope, thinking, vision of how restitution can happen, means that they may have to become the poor class. But that when I say limited, I mean that our notions of restitution and the models that have existed past and the models that we could possibly create in the future aren't necessarily meant to disenfranchise other groupings, other people, or let me say other peoples, if I put it that way. We are one humanity, but for the sake of this argument, our intention is not to disenfranchise other people. That wouldn't be justice, that wouldn't be corrective. But the implications economically, the implications spiritually, politically, and on all other levels would be that. And I feel that even within our country, that's a level or a layer of the argument that we're going to have to very, very specifically address at some point. When it comes down to rands and cents, and what has to ultimately happen when we create new systems, when we either disengage completely from the system, will be where is our treasure chest, warrior chest of centuries of restitutive monies that have to be paid back to us. And that's that's a whole other conversation, but a necessary conversation.
Yes.
And I think it's going to be ultimately important for women to be at that table. And this brings me back to addressing the leadership vacuum within our Khoisan movement, but also the leadership vacuum in terms of politics as we currently see it. There are hardly any women we can reference who we could say are standout politicians. Hardly. There is no secession conversation happening in South Africa. And you hear the idea of elections being floundered, but who is there to consider?
Yes.
Every political party has denied us. Every political party has let us down. Every political party is literally just about maneuvering and using the vote of women. And chances are, based on recent stats, we still outnumber as a collective group. We outnumber the men in this country, which means if you disenfranchise the woman, you're disenfranchising the youth as a whole, which means you've clipped the wings of our potential future.
Yes.
So I hope that to an extent I've addressed some of what I feel is a segue into this conversation about what that legacy really means. And I don't want to take way too much more time on it, but it's this idea that our oracles, even though we don't have, ultimate access to the records that we should, our oral history isn't carried or shared and recorded enough. But I'd venture a wild guess that the economic systems of what our San culture operated around did not in any way, shape, or form, especially if women were the gatherers and men were the hunters, if we have to look at it that way for the sake of argument. If women were the gatherers, essentially you have a stake at whatever is being brought to the proverbial table. Or you are the table, but collectively we know we are the table, because we're not speaking about separatism. So I don't want to veer off into many other sub themes and sub threads, but I feel that is an important talking point that we should carry forward.
No, that was Gangansi. Thank you. That was perfect, Snyder. And then I'm not going to say anything because I know Shanae is burning to talk, so I'm going to give her enough time. Let's stick to our times, and then we have our last speaker that also needs to go up. Thank you. Sister Shanae, the floor is yours.
So with regards to the fragmentation of us as a people, we should really first, let's give honor to the indigenous people of Congo, the Banki people that are Pygmies, the relatives of the Bushmen that are still facing oppression today and that are still living in the worst conditions just like us here in the Southern Africa. And also to pay tribute to the strong women that we have in the group today that are really bringing forth the energy that we need. And I can really see the direction that the conversation is going into. So I will lean into it and I will shape it the way it needs to go. As the spirit leads, they say. I'd like to open up with a quote by Dr. Leonard Martin, where he says that slaves were denied two things, an identity and a memory. And that plays so much into how post-colonization, post-Berlin Conference, post-everything, how our identity has been shaped. When we look at the slavery in the context of South Africa, which definitely harshly impacted the Bushmen, was forced assimilation. We were forced to take on Christianity. We were forced and beaten not to speak our languages. We were forced and killed to not practice our culture. So when you look at us today, you are literally looking at those that were sheltered, those that were hidden to come back and assist the future. Our oral history is still intact. We just do not have access to one another. We are few and far between. And that is why spaces like this is so important for us to come together. Because it's pointless we are going to reconcile and unify and have truth and reconciliation, but we've never come to the truth of who we are. So the center of decolonization and the center of indigenization is the returning of yourself, reconnecting with yourself and understanding your unique identity. And that was one of the things that was completely shattered and fragmented during these periods of colonization and slavery. A lot of people completely lost identities to their families. When we do a lot of counseling with people in the healing spaces, a lot of people cannot tell you the families that they come from. They do not understand the surnames that they have. And that plays such a huge role into who you are as a person. And one of the other moms here said that it is important for us to have a culture. It's important to have an identity. And within South Africa, we see how the government plays the ambiguity of our identity against us, where we do not know where we come from. We do not have a clear understanding of our history. But if we are put in touch with the true knowledge keepers and the wisdom bearers of our forefathers, you have a completely different understanding of who you are as a person. Specifically, let's go to the Battle of Salt River. The white man has his version. The Bushman version is different. The Khoi version is the same. It's different. It was a simple case of what is trending today, the Epstein files. They came to traffic women and children. And they were met with a very violent retaliation. What we should really, really look out for is when the colonizer becomes silent with his pen. The colonizer paints the picture from a patriarchal perspective when we as the Khoi and the Bushmen are matriarchal. That meant that women were not the gatherers of herbs and just the take carers of the children. We were also the hunters. We were the warriors. We would hunt huge game for very special initiations, very special ceremonies. The colonizer would very harshly punish our women for how they violently stood up for themselves and how they violently defended their territories, their land, and their people. Many times us as Bushman women, especially African women as well, are painted from a perspective of being timid, of being soft, of being so easily pleasing and amenable. And that is not how we are. One of the biggest quotes I give my kids a lot is, niceness is deeply rooted in whiteness. You are not expected or required in an indigenous space to be nice to anybody. I am required to be kind. I'm required to be loving, and I'm required to give you the respect that I think I deserve for myself. And that is one of the things that is completely shattered within our society today. We are leaning on false narratives of niceness, and we are forgetting the pillars of us and our identity starts with honesty. If I'm not honest with you, I am not kind. And those building blocks put together your reconciliation, which brings you to a point of unity. Once you understand who you are and where you fit in with your unique purpose and your unique role. As the Bushmen, we always say that everyone is born with a sacred life story, and you are named according to your sacred life story. So the journey that we are on at the moment is not only just to dismantle these systems of oppression, it is also to come to the purpose of yourself and to come to the understanding of who you are as a person and why you are created for a time like this. When we look into our ceremonies and how we've communed with the ancestors, one of the most beautiful questions that we hear as healers, that we always ask, why didn't you fight back? Why are we like this? And they said they fought back. They've always fight. They're still fighting. And we are failing to see that we are the people in the fire they spoke to, and they said they are going to keep peace for now. They're going to protect what needs to be protected. And that is the stance of a mother, because a mother would understand that I cannot sacrifice everybody for the few. And many people discard how women take very, very difficult decisions and how we are able to still try and nurture through those difficult decisions. One thing that I would really like everyone to take away from this is that the story you've been told is a lie. When we come to our sacred fires, we tell the stories of our ancestors, not the stories of the white man. Because the story of the white man is always going to put you at a disadvantage, because he was never the hunter. He was only someone that came from an extractive economy, that only came here as a house guest but didn't come to eat with us. They came to eat us. Today, they rule over a land that they do not actually have jurisdiction over, and they do not have sovereignty. And I do not know why we continue to delude ourselves to thinking that we are powerless to that. As anyone in a spiritual space that does work as a practitioner, if you are operating out of your jurisdiction, it's going to backfire anyway. You don't need to do much. You are playing the game against yourself. So we understand that we now are in a space where we have the upper hand, even though it doesn't look that way. And we need to educate our children in this way. You need to educate your children that Africa is one Africa. They thought they scrambled Africa, but we've still been us from the beginning. And we need to understand that if we go back to the stories of our ancestors, not the story of the white man, what they told us, we come from warrior women. We come from women that were the highest healers. You know, one of the most beautiful things that has come forward for us is the true name of the Khoi and the Bushman. It's in Jan van Riebeck's diaries, he says he speaks to the Sonkwa, and Zenaida spoke about earlier, the Kwa people, water people. And when we go to other Bushmen and ask them, what does it translate in your language? Sonkais is supreme people to some people. To the Naro people, it is supreme healers. And when we put the whole word together from all the Bushman tribes, it translated to the supreme nation of healing. And when we look into history, we see that the Europeans also came here for healing. The Chinese came here to learn their healing methods. So we seriously need to look at who we are as a people. If you are named by your ancestors a supreme nation of healers, then that means you are born with the DNA of the solution. You are not part of the problem. And you need to look within yourself and go back to where you come from to find that threads that so that you can bind yourself to the umbilical cord. One of the most beautiful things in trance is where we come together with song, dance, music, vibration, and spirit. And we are all bound together with one umbilical cord because we all have one mother. And with that umbilical cord is attached. But the nightmare that a lot of us has as shaman is seeing a lot of people walking detached from the umbilical cord, attached from the primordial mother, from the mitochondrial Eve, which is, mind you, only found in Africa. So we as women have a huge role and a responsibility to, number one, return to the ways of the old and find the truth so that we not only give birth to the possibilities of a brighter future, we give birth and educate children and women that can take this forward, that we're not giving birth to children that are feeling less of themselves. A lot of what we deal with today is quite literally just an illusion. Colonization was an illusion. There was absolutely no way that they could have bought Cape Town. So they casted an illusion and they just played the long ball by telling the story over and over that you lost, you didn't succeed, we have everything, you have nothing. When in essence, they don't actually have anything. They're just sitting on false stools of power. And once we come back to ourselves and you understand the power that is within yourself, you begin to realize that these illusions are just as fleeting as their arrival here. Because within the way our ancestors think, time is not linear. We live the past, the present, and the future all in one. So it really brings us back to a moment of sobering. How are we going to take this forward into the future? And I want to leave everyone with the words of Empress Taitu. And this should really be indicative of the spirit and the fire that we as women have. And in one of her speeches, she says that we will build Ethiopia on the skulls of those that tried to come and colonize her. And that is the fire that we as all women should have within inside of ourselves. That we will conquer and we will dance on top of the bones of whoever wants to come and take our land. And we should stop being afraid. The reason why I've stepped back from a lot of the Khoi movement now is because it's completely patriarchal. They are not working within sync of who they are as the people they claim to be. If we are matriarchal, that means you have a strong female front of women that have been given a chance to speak, to be seen, and to be heard. For the mothers to come back and say, this is what we want for our children as the people that bring the children. And a lot of us are so detached from our ways of life. One of the most beautiful things for me personally is that of all the traditions and all the rituals, the one ritual that is still intact today, which is the most sacred and not spoken about, is the ritual of hawk macy. Hawk maces are more prevalent still practiced today, but very underground. So that means we as women can still take girls through the rites of passage. We can still have our maidens and our matriarchs come through in our lifetime. So yes, that's the fragmented parts that I wish we could bind back together.
Thank you, Fire. Thank you, Empress. Thank
Amase.
you, Naida. Thank you for that powerful way of basically being able to connect all systems of oppression and then also ending it off beautifully around the power of women and the matriarchy in
Ladies,
the way that we organize. Chief Shai, we have our last panelist that will go up, which is Tara Amelia from Manenberg, proudly Manenberg, and her question is really around contextually from your experience in Manenberg, how does land disposition manifest in everyday life? And yeah, I also want you to bring into the conversation the 50 public spaces as being up on auction by the city of Cape Town, the organizing around that, and what do we need to do as a people right now, today, in order to organize, and especially with our young people, and educate them around what's happening, and then also basically being able to bring them together as one. Over to you.
Bronwyn, can I just ask a quick question? Or am I going to be allowed to ask questions afterwards?
Yes, afterwards, Chief. Thank you.
Okay.
So if we look at what we have right now, we have communities that's fighting for space. We have people not understanding where they're going to sleep tonight because of disposition. We have people saying, where to from now or from here? We have the level of violence, and it can be projected from a view of too little space, because when the forced removals happened in the 1960s, and if I talk in terms of the Manenberg context, it was in 1966. And that was when Verwoerd, the architect of this forced removal, was dying as well, but we are still sitting with that problem. So if you look in terms of the available land, the vacant land, and what's happening right now, is that the people are not offered to use that spaces. People have been told there's no land for them. To pay for this land. But we also know that this land that's been sold, the value of it is much more than it's been sold for right now. And being dispossessed of their own land. So where do we go from here? I think that to us, because now with court cases and that was been granted in the hands or to the city of Cape Town, which give the people with the money the opportunity to take from us once again, because the money that they have in the first place is our money, and now they're taking our land with our own money as well. We are now sitting with a situation where the city of Cape Town, because we believe that they are part of the Zionist cabal, running the city of Cape Town, is now having the option or to use the system as something that benefits them, because you have the system now stating that the city of Cape Town can go ahead and it won't be illegal when there's a court hearing or a appeal that is been lodged, been granted, and yet the city is continuing. If it was on the other side of that situation, if it was us as the people, we would have been called out by everyone to say we are doing something illegal. But yet, the same rules is not applying to the city of Cape Town. So we're sitting with these contradictions, that the law is working for some people, but not for others. And if you don't have money, you can't go to court. You also have case law that's been written by the same people that's oppressing us. So the question in this case to some of us, is the courts really the space to get justice for our people? Or is it that we need to go back to basics and organize on the ground? Because with this conversation that we are having right now in terms of everything must be hosted in a particular way because we're buying into the narrative of the colonizer, we are sitting with the fact that the majority of the people is not part of that conversation. And so there's a big gap in terms of who is participating, in terms of holding the space above the land. And then you have the people on the other side being equipped by the colonizer to engage with the colonizer, and we're keeping the masses out of the conversation. So, and the reason why I'm saying this, because I'm an activist. I'm not advocating for the system. I'm not ensuring that the system will stay alive. Our purpose is to ensure that this system is going to come to an end. And the way we have to do that is that we need to organize. We need to make sure that the people on the ground understand the conversations, take a stand, and come together. And like everyone else is saying, unity is going to be our way forward. There's no other way. We are going to have, because what we find was, while we had the conversations, the meetings over this last 2 weeks about the auctioning, we have people who wants to do the right thing, but we all are not coming from the same way of want to achieve this thing. And so there's a lot of, and therefore we can say that the system in its current form, it is facilitating division amongst us.
Yes.
And so we are not on the same page, even though our needs are the same. So how do we get to that conversation? Because it's either, for an activist like myself, I either have to have the conversation here with the people that have some academic understanding, or I have the conversation with the people which is marginalized and can't have the conversation. Because I feel that we will not be able to move if we don't engage the masses. Where the people are not able to understand the conversation, we need to put more effort into it, because the whole colonial system was designed in a way, or actually matured in a way, that the masses must be left behind, that they should not be part of the conversation, that they should not be part of giving answers to. So in Manenberg's case, I mean, we had a beautiful model called Proudly Manenberg that we've implemented in 2005. And the government came and made sure it's been infiltrated. And that people's power module was broken down internally and externally. Because if you have a people's power module, like the one that Samora Machel believed in, Chris Hani believed in, Ashley Creel believed in, you will have people that will be able to organize themselves, decide for themselves, implement for themselves, and you don't need the politicians. And that is why the system don't, or the colonizers don't want that type of governance around. So people's power, to us who are practicing it, is one of the ways that can get us out of this rut that we are in. Because within the people's power module, you have the support of people, where people understand that you have to share and care, live in peace and friendship, and so forth. So the values of the Freedom Charter that that was actually buried in 1996 through the RDP is something that we know that we had to we now have to revive, or we're busy reviving it, some of us. And so that there should not be space for politicians, that we should have a good governance system that will be able to administer our systems, but we don't need politicians, because all that the politicians are doing is making sure that we are not operating as a nation. Yes. And yet they are being seen as the lawmakers. But how come is it that the lawmakers is playing us up against each other as a nation? So, and with this case, this court case, you had some of the politicians coming, but no one is taking the city of Cape Town to an account for proceeding with this auction. So they're not doing things in our interests. So we're very clear that this system is failing us. Yes. And if it's failing us, it means in Manenberg we now currently full speed in a deregistering of voting and the example that I can cite to is that in 2025, we had a by-election, and in that particular ward, there were 17,000 people registered, and only 5,000 people went to vote. 12,000 people didn't go and vote. So it means that our campaign is moving. And we urge all communities to start to use that system to close down this voting system, because that is one of the ways where we're going to start to claim back our power as the people. Thank you.
Power to the people, power to the people, power to the people. Thank you, Tara. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone that was listening. I know we have all been moved, and again, I hope we see the logic of the conversation around what does it mean globally in the African continent? How was Berlin separated? How did we move to Adwa as a main source of organizing tactics that we need to make sure that we understand, and especially the power of women in making sure that we're able to organize accordingly through militancy, through spiritual consciousness, and then also politically. Then now we're moving to Cape Town and what that looks like on the ground in the context for us as a people. And how do we need to organize? And we need to organize through people's power, and that's what is important. I'm going to give the floor to panelists, so you can just raise your hand. To those in the audience, apologies. You can just raise your hand if you do have a question. Again, I'm going to refrain people from doing speeches. Please ask your questions directly to the panelists. We do have people that do need to go. So keep it short, keep it sharp. We are running over time, so we're going to give about 15 minutes for a Q&A, and then we will go ahead to end off this powerful and beautiful session. Thank you. Chief Chai. We have Prof. Mamamutsi that wants to quickly say something before he leaves, if that's okay, Chief Chai. And then we'll give the floor over to those in plenary that has questions.
Please go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Speak like this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Elder.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all of you.
Welcome.
It's a long discussion. Too many ideas you have all expressed, but I just want to say a few things. Yes. The Europeans said, our might is our right. And then they said, with Adwa victory, Africa made our might wrong. That's what they said. They made Africa became a winner, they said. But our problem is, if we made that wrong, why do we still have colonialism not completely removed from our part? I was listening to the sister, the DRC Congo. The DRC Congo has resources estimated to 24 trillion. That was a combined gross national product of all of Europe and America in 2009. I must tell you, this is very, very important. At the moment, the DRC Congo is in the Africa World War. We're in a difficult time. Who is involved in this? The Belgians are involved. The French are involved. The local, in our local areas also, they are involved. But why Frantz Fanon called the DRC Congo the heart of Africa? Our heart is broken. By breaking the DRC Congo, we are actually breaking Africa. You see, this is serious. And who is also involved in the DRC Congo? The politicians are involved, as you mentioned it. Our politicians ally with the colonial powers. The French, I must tell you, the 14 countries in France, the franc is dead in France, but it is alive in the 14 countries. You know what? All the money, something like over 80% of the money of the 14 countries is in French banks. When they take their own money, they pay interest. Can you imagine? This is more colonialism now than when the French were formally colonizing us. We have a serious problem. And who is involved in this? Who is involved? Our own leaders are involved. Our politicians are involved. They are corrupt, and they ally with them. They work with them. So we have this challenge. How do we remove this? You know, how are we going to change? It's very important. For example, take China. China has 34 states, provinces. And they have over 56 ethnic groups. But they are one nation, one people, one key language they use, The pride they have is incredible. And you know, nearly 1.5 billion people, more than us, all of Africa together. Now, no one is a beggar. No one is. I was in China for about 2 months. I was teaching in 6 or 7 universities. They invite me all over. I was amazed. I'm telling you, what you see. Even the rural areas, they have made them urban areas. It's incredible. They told me, you know, Zhejiang University is called, and Tsinghua University, all these top universities, Beijing University. I went to all these universities. I must tell you what I was just amazed about China. One of them said, Hangzhou, you need to go to Hangzhou. That's a city. But you know, you also need to go to Hunan. He says, you need to go to Hunan. And says, if you go to Hunan, it's a you know, rural area. You know what? When I went to Hunan, I saw almost more urban than Hangzhou. And I say to him, Xiaobao is his name, Professor Xiaobao. Well, Professor Xiaobao, I call him my DD, meaning in the Chinese language, it means my brother. I said to him, how come that when I saw this, I didn't see, I wanted to show you this, Mamo. That's what I want to show you. In China, everything now is standardized, he said, completely. The urban areas, rural areas, all these things are standardized. The entire country, they have done it. They did it systematically, not by, imitating or mimicking, copying from the colonial system. We made a mistake. Julius Nyerere said, Tanzania is a colonial mistake. All our states are colonial mistakes. We're still in the colonial mistake. We're not removed yet. We do not know our own knowledge. We have the richest indigenous knowledge in this world. Now, in this time, I'm just telling my brother, I'm telling him, Rashen, on this, when he gave me the opportunity, I'm going to do on the 130 years of the Adwa Great African Victory, we need to create the Adwa Pan-African University. And we want to create it on campuses across the world. We need to create endowment fund, many things like we need to do it, and the entire indigenous knowledge, the rich knowledge we don't know about what was created from us. The alphabet, the script, the ancient language, when the whole of Africa was called Ethiopia, in that ancient time, we created the language Giz. Giz is called by Europeans, they call it the mother of all languages, the father of all languages. They call it, but we don't know, we don't even know it. We have problems like that. We need to know the entire indigenous knowledge system, binary logic mathematics, philosophy, extraordinary philosophy. For example, Zeria Yacob, a great philosopher, Hatata, he wrote a book saying that with that, God is not religion. With religion, you hurt God. My way of worshiping you is better than your way. Then you go to war. You create war. God is truth. God is love. God is not religion. You see, this kind of things, there's so many things we could do. All these ethnic groups, our differences, we should appreciate, value. Our oneness, we should celebrate. That's what we should be doing. We're not doing it. All humanity to live in one world community is what we need to do. This is what we need to do, and we need to work on it. This new university that we're now recommending, we want in the Caribbean a campus, in America, even everywhere, in Latin America also. In all parts of Africa, we do it. We create it with strong university. The indigenous knowledge, that was the rich knowledge, the philosophy, everything, the Ubuntu, we need to do. We also have created another important university. It's called Osiri University. I ran the PhD program, and it's very, very good program. We're now doing it. We're doing it using the current technology to do it. We need to work on very, very new things, new approaches, and entirely change with intellectual, with, scholarly ability, the rich knowledge that was created in Africa. We value it, we treasure it, we excavate it, we revive it, and then we make the future to be not a colonial future, but a completely liberated future. We need to go for that. Thank you.
To a liberated future for our people, for our kids, where we are able to access knowledge and people's power. Questions to the floor? Thank you, bro. We excuse you from the room. Thank you very, very much. For those who have questions, yes, that's okay. So yeah, we have a question on the floor, but can we just take the person who had the first, yeah, his hand up for very long. Sorry, we just want to make sure that the people online are in place. Thank you. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. You can go ahead. You can go. Chief Guy. You can unmute yourself.
Brent, they're allowing you to speak.
Apologies, we're just waiting for you. Your hand is up. You can go ahead. Because you are muted. Just unmute yourself. Okay, can we go to the question on the floor while we wait on Chief Kai? Or I know Zenaida had knew the person by their name. So I see Carl Footprints' hand is also up. First to the question on the floor in person, and then we're going to go to those who are online. Thank you.
With all that's been taken, a lot of it will take over the years. But what is the solution? I'm going to come with a solution. My solution is that we as a collective here today, as we found ourselves, although we are few, we are powerful. And we do have the power to break the chains. And from today on, can we roll out a group or something where we can get all our African brothers together and go to the streets and say enough is enough.
Sorry, chairperson, can you ask the lady to come closer to the microphone? There she is. Hello.
Can I go ahead? Yeah. Okay. I've asked for what is the solution? We've been speaking and preaching for years. And my solution is that we come together and bring our African brothers together. The few that we are here today as a collective, we have the power to bring our African brothers together and go to the streets and say enough is enough. The African brothers and sisters is the solution.
Thank you. Please. Those who are online, she answered her own question, and I don't know if any of the panelists actually want to say something. But I think she already gave a solution, and they can just be added to the group that has been created. There's a lot of other organizers in the space, people who want to contribute to making sure that this is meaningful and not just an event, you understand, so that we constantly remain united under this umbrella of African unity. Chief, you can go ahead.
Okay, I was having some technical problems. First of all, I want to say good afternoon, good morning if you're in North America, like I am in Canada. I'm an African in Canada, a proud African in Canada, and I was just thinking, you know, shout out to telling them to keep their hands off our ancestral lands. But I wanted to say,
was a collective effort,
my
Brent,
vision-
collective effort. The whole of Cape Town was pulling, the whole of the country was pulling. So we can't take credit,
okay,
but I will relay your
okay, but
thanks.
Janelle, you guys
Collective
were at
effort.
the forefront, so I want to say yes, viva, 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 viva. So I want to also say that this conversation was very matriarchal and very much about the woman. But I want you guys to know, all of you women, to know that us men that are in this panel here today are fully behind you, and that we are better feminists than even Barack Obama. Like, I'm fully behind you guys. And I believe that our society will be a much better society if it was run by women and women alone. Having said that, Zenaida, I want to put a question to you and to Shanae. Celebrating the matriarchal and celebrating the woman, where is the space for us two-spirited people? Are you familiar with the idea of two-spirit, Zenaida?
Somewhat, Brent. I'm going to just jump in. I hope your question is complete, or if that's the scope of it. From my limited knowledge, or what I've been exposed to through other people's lived experiences as well, the matriarchy is not the opposite of patriarchy. Yeah. Matriarchy is not the exclusion of the masculine. Yes. So the two can't necessarily be equated if you're looking at it as, if matriarchy reigns, the masculine is excluded. You know, because the one actually, since perpetuity precedes the other. Patriarchy as we know it was a response, you know, a reactionary, westernized largely interpretation of what it would be, or interpretation of power, or the assertion of power that initially rested on matriarchy, which automatically meant some kind of balance based on how women express power, how women interpret power, how women wield, create power. Our power dynamics, our power systems as women are unknown to the world very, very largely, because we've been so suppressed in that sense. And I speak broadly. For example, for democracy, as not even the form of democracy that we know, for democracy to have taken root in Europe, to existed, they marched more than about 10,000 women out of what is now known as Europe Major, across the mountains into the larger part of what is Asia, the Caucasus area, all the way through there, just so the idea of democracy could be seeded in the world. Why? Because even in those parts of Europe, the matrilineal system was the system that was dominating. So if you dismantled that matriarchal system, you had to do with a large constituent of people who were believers and practicing that system. So in response to you, I'm kind of dotting aspects of what exists in Africa, what existed in Europe, for this pseudo-democracy that we all live under to exist. Women had to largely be muted. Imagine 10,000 largely European women being marched out, killed, etc., for a system to take place. And now that system itself is failing, they literally are they literally have shown us through COVID and other divisive means that everybody now can get cancelled for whatever new system to be in place. They've done what they need to do with the women. They can't blatantly target just the male population anymore for any political system to exist. So now anybody can get it if we speak in those terms. So that is my short kind of indirect response to you. I am aware of two-spirited people. And the thing is, in terms of us being balanced, if I link it to the two-spirited analogy, our masculine, our feminine, when in balance, exists in all of us.
Existing
So in many
all of us.
ways,
And you
we are
know,
all
Zenaida, as well as
artist-spirited.
I know,
It's just about
Zenaida,
expression.
you know, Zenaida, as well as I know, Zenaida, that our great creator is both male and female at the same time.
I acknowledge
And
the
so,
mother, father, creator of the world, Brent.
and
So
so
I'm gonna rest with that.
we need to go post-colonialism, post-gender, post language, post everything. We need to have we need to forge a new way forward. Where do you know that in our native languages there is no he she, there is no he she. It's just you and I, and so we need to get to the place where it's just you and I again.
It's a we. It's a
And
we.
we.
The Kun and the Kwedam people who are now have been moved to Kimberley in Pampierstad. I had the opportunity of visiting the village of Kun and the Kwedam where they've been established now. And I was at a school, and the children, it was break time, the children were playing games, and they're doing a hand clapping game, and it was just lit. And I went to the kids and I was like, okay, what does those words mean? And they were telling me that they're referencing the mother. And I was just like, whose mother? What's going on? Is it's like a little song? And they essentially referencing our deity in Kun and Kwedam culture. The mother is referenced. That's what I took away from that. And maybe I'm not doing justice to the full context of it, but it really just shifted everything for me, because I'd always been struggling with that balance. When you're trying to work through this mystification of religion, etc. I was like, there's no way that we could be made in the image of anything, whether it's the Elohim or any other entity, and women be so ignored, so overlooked, So it really brought it home for me, and I'm at peace with the mother, father, creator.
Can we get the other panelists to answer before we continue? We are about 30 minutes after our prescribed time that we were supposed to engage. And
Chair lady, I just want to raise my hand and say thank you again for your wonderful invigilation.
Thank you. I'm trying my best. Shanae, the floor is yours. And then I know Carl Footprints also had a hand up. Thank you very much.
So yes, I'm aware of the two spirit beings. That is more a Native American concept, but to the Bushman it is a bit different. We have our creators.
Before you go ahead, I just want to say you look fantastic. I love your headdress. I love your jewelry.
Thank you.
You look like a real koi and calm princess, and I love you. I appreciate your efforts.
Guys. So it is a bit different. So maybe I should explain from the perspective of our mythologies and our customary law, so you can understand. In our community, everyone has their space. And with matriarchy being the center of that space, matriarchy is not, in the context of Bushman, is not every woman is a matriarch. Not every woman is a Tara. Not every woman becomes a Tarakai. Not every woman becomes the Hamko, which is the mother of all mothers. So from a biological perspective, the woman that is the creator is, or co-creator with nature. We are not praised only for the ability to reproduce, but because we reproduce with Mother Nature. And that comes to our strong link with nature. The gender roles is not what we see in the patriarchal context. So if you were to come into our community, women are hunters too, women are warriors too, but the boys spend more time with the mother. It is the mother that raises the boys until they go through the rites of passage. So it is important also for us to understand that there is divine union constantly. It is always between the women having a respect for men and the men having a respect for females. When it comes to rites of passage, because you are biologically male, you will have to undergo the male rites of passage, because the female rites of passage is a closed practice. Our practices are closed. That is why we are fully aware that a lot of people don't know what we practice and don't know what we do, because the men in our community don't know what we do. There are no men in our ceremonies. There are no men that sit around us when we do what we need to do. Women are given the highest regard, and therefore we have the most strictest system with regards to the qualification to a tara or qualification to a matriarch. A lot of the healing work for females happen within your crone phase. It's not in maiden, it's not in mother, it is in crone. It is when you're out of your childbearing years. And some women that become healers actually give up the opportunity to be wives or to be mothers. So when it comes to the indigenous Bushman perspective, we really have to re-educate one another and bring one another into the space of understanding the roles of the man, the roles of the woman, and how those intertwine, and how we give space to one another lovingly to bloom as we should. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that powerful synthesis of what it means to be truly indigenous as a woman and as a Tara. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Shanae.
Thank you. We're gonna go over to Kalfoot Princess, and then we also have Shamba Kazi that also has his hand up again. Direct the questions to the panelists. We are running out of time, and we about have 5 minutes left. We want to make sure that everyone gets to answer the questions. I think we can extend that 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Thank you very, very much, everyone, for your patience and your time here today. Kalfoot Princess, do you still have your question?
Chairperson, is there any way that I can get the email addresses or the WhatsApp numbers of the people that were on the panel tonight?
Yes, you can definitely do so. They can, if they are comfortable, they can share the details right here in the chat. And then also, I know you might be connected to Ms. Martin, and then we can connect in that way. That's okay. Kalfoot Princess, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all of the panelists. My question is directed to Elder Amelia. I would like to commend them for the deregistration campaign. However, I'm concerned about how it could potentially backfire, because as far as I'm aware, the voting system doesn't require a certain number of voters in order for a vote to be passed. We saw that discrepancy in the past election, where many people couldn't vote, who didn't show up to vote where they are registered, where in the past they could just fill in a form. Many wasn't aware that there was a new rule where they had to do an application prior to the election, and as a result, they could not vote. However, the vote was still the national vote was still accepted, and it was passed despite it not being a fair process. And so the reason why I say I'm concerned that it could potentially backfire is because as African people, our numbers is our advantage. And if the minority all show up to vote and we don't show up to vote, yeah, they could potentially get the country back. I feel that way. So yeah, I would just like to raise that concern. Thank you.
Very, very much. Then before we answer that question, can we get the question from Shambo Katsi? And then we can go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Shumba Kadzi, I'm in Zimbabwe. Thank you so much. That was very interesting.
Hi, Shumba.
Hi. Hello, hi. I just wanted to ask, I think there's quite a range of issues that have been raised from the sort of psycho-spiritual process of decolonizing, the individual and the society, and also the practicalities and the urgency of what is happening now. Like, we're actually in the process of being decolonized, of being colonized, recolonized, as not just continent-wide, but globally, with all this New World Order stuff. And I just wanted to ask about tapping, this is more of a practical question to everybody, about maybe considering tapping into the existing movements that are there are people in Ghana that are that have sort of decolonial organizations. What's happening in the Sahel, in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Togo and the like. And I'm just wondering about sort of just joining forces with other people who are tackling the same things, because I think even just talking about it, we're actually very vulnerable, because even the platform that we're talking on is recording and listening with the intention of suppressing, observing, collecting information, oppressing, thwarting any kind of dissent. That's just the reality of it. So I just wondered whether there's scope for us to join the efforts of other people, because they are out there. Yeah, so that was my comment and contribution.
Is that directed to anyone? I definitely think my Moses would like to answer that. I know Sumpisa left us already, but I definitely think I would leave that in the hands of my Moses, and then also our other panelist, Pijamaro. Tara, all over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So the issue about the elections, I think what we are missing is that the elections is not necessarily about only people to go and vote. It's also a budgetary issue. And what we are saying is the more people that's on the IEC voters roll, the more money is coming from the central coffers to the IEC. That is the one concern that we are faced with, or worry. Now, in the context of South Africa, our rights are being limited to the availability of resources. But in terms of the Constitution, your political rights in terms of voting will never be limited, which means there will always be money. So there's an imbalance in terms of where money is being located, or our national funds are being located. So that is the one concern. So for us, in terms of deregistering from the voters' roll, it means we are saying to National Treasury, you're not giving funds for me to the IEC any longer. So that is the one side of the conversation that we're not speaking about. It's about the imbalance of our national funds being allocated to voting, or the voting system, versus our social economic rights that's been dumbed down to the fact that there is no money. Then the issue about the number game. So if we look at it in 1989, when the election took place and there was a minimal type of amount of people that went to vote, because of the people that stood up for the elections not to continue at the time, the National Party continue with the understanding that they are not a legal government anymore. And that's why they felt pressurized. And therefore the 1994 took place. So that strategy meant that the people that's governing don't have power anymore. And that's why they had to give way for our people to come in. I think that at this point, what they are busy doing is they're looking at the minimalist voters outcome. And but if we placed ourselves strategically in terms of ensuring that we get the deregistering at a high speed, we are able to push whoever try to hold the space in the political space for making themselves relevant. and the forces of, because that is the voting space is ensuring that the colonialist system have a way of continuing. It doesn't matter who's going to be there as politicians, but for us to show that we are understanding, and we want them to move, or we want to move the system strategically, we have to show that we are not interested in the system. So it's not about not going to vote. It's not about not going to vote. It's about exiting the voting system. That is what we are saying. So the deregistering is supporting the argument that the people are not supporting the system anymore. And that is one of the peaceful ways that we can possibly engaging with this oppression, instead of the other way we're going to do the revolutionary style of the change. Because the more we are opening, because, oh yes, so the other thing that they did now recently, they've endorsed the independence voting practice, and they gave more power to it. And why are they doing that? Because they need fresh voters. They need more people to come and register to vote. Because the people that are registered voters since 1994 don't necessarily come and vote anymore. So every time they give the space for people to come in, to be creating a new party or a new individual to show its face. And it's never about the new party. It's not about the new face. It's about keeping the voting system alive to ensure that they can continue with the plundering. And so the voting system is ensuring our oppression is just been deepening. And therefore, the number game is only going to play out when the people are deregistering from the IEC. The IEC is actually the host of this machinery, and making sure that that system is going to keep us in a particular way, that we believe that our changes must come through politicians and political parties, and therefore our agency has been taken away. So it's something that we didn't try recently, but it's something that we are pushing. We can see that the politicians are getting worried. We also see that that the Department of Home Affairs went outside of the country to start to set up Home Affairs offices, because they are worried about the voters not wanting to vote here. So it is about the numbers coming at the end of the day, whether they like it or not. And then the last point I wanted to raise is the digital ID system is exactly to support that support this fraudulent voting system, because it's going to mean that we don't have to go into a polling station to vote any longer. And if we look at the last elections, defaults that happened with computer systems that switched off, the numbers of the outcomes are different. We are very clear that they are going to do certain things to ensure it looks like a good amount of numbers voted, but then it didn't happen. So the voting system is a very important instrument for them to keep their oppression alive. And it's up to us to cause that change and cause the rifts there. Yeah, so that's my answer to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. How do we get to use our own forms of organizing as a means to tackle systems of oppression? Then over to our last panelist, Mom Moses. We'll give you the floor to end it off for us. Mom Moses, are you still with us? To answer the question of Shumba Katsi from Zimbabwe. Empress Moses.
Okay, bless. I was trying to get myself unmuted. You know, sometimes our systems do their own thing.
Yes.
Yeah, in the interest of time, etc., you know, I am definitely wanting to thank the organizers for this opportunity. We have closed all the talk shops, but our workshops are all open. And I think today's gathering is a workshop. I and I not just talking, I and I are the workers, you know? So as I and I look into how we move forward, one of the things that will be happening on Saturday, we'll be having a 9 or 10-hour gathering of the Global Run Pack. That's the Rastafari Unity Nation Pan-African Collective, where the dialogue is about action items. What are you doing in your organization? What are the needs that you have that others can help with? What are the needs for investment? And we've actually been having those kind of linkages happening during Global Run Pack monthly session, that investors are stepping up when one puts on the board what they actually have going on. So I think my phone is dying. It hasn't died yet, right? That's one of the reasons why. Okay. So one of the things that will happen on Saturday for the February, it is about training, skills training, because that's where we are now. How ones will manage their own organization, because all of the participating organizations are headed by Rastafari, that is the Ethiopian World Federation, headed by our superwoman esteemed president of Local 12 also, and also the international, the cannabis attorney, etc. So many different, you know, she's also been given the voice, sorry, to represent the Royal Council of the Ethiopian royal family. His Imperial Highness, Prince Ermias Sal Selassie Haile Selassie, has put that in writing. So I and I know our closing ranks where the Ark, the African royal kingdoms, which include Empire Ark, Almighty Rastafari Kingdom. So we have now the royalties moving to the fore, you know, and letting our current generation know that slavery is not part of our identity. As I and I reclaim our identity, it was a royal people that they tried to enslave. And there was always resistance on every front, no matter how minimal they might make it, because they were telling the story. But the lions and the lionesses are now telling their own story. We are the hunters, and we are going to continue you know, to persevere and prevail, because these are the days that Jeremiah was told to write in Jeremiah 32, where the woman shall compass the man. Compass means to encircle. I and I know our place as the partner from the side, standing in balance. I and I know that our man is the king, and we can stand behind and really push for whatever needs to happen for our family and our nation. Well, I and I also know there are times as the matriarch, I and I have to step forward in front of the man, in front of the prince and princesses, and protect our family, because the colonizers not joking with their plan, okay? They are prepared, and those who fail to plan to fail. And Emperor Haile Selassie tell I and I that failure is not an option. I and I are creators. We have been endowed with the skill set to create a way out of no way. That is what Kuumba, the sixth principle of Kwanzaa, is about. our creativity to survive, even if no matter when we're not in our way, we are create our way. And we continue with the 7th principle, the faith that we shall win. I and I are victorious. We are born winners. And no, man, we never ever lose. We either learn a lesson or we're winning. You overs. Or we are creating something new. So having said that, I am going to, in the interest of time, invite those that are here to join I and I on the global run for Saturday. It starts at 9 a.m. and ends at 5. You will be getting training, but you'll also be getting a Pan-African spirituality, the Rastafari Pan-African spirituality, that ones are not even aware that His Majesty has said that as king, he's equally Christian, Muslim, and pagan, our indigenous African spirituality. So I and I are grounded. As we know, you cannot separate the spirituality from the economic colonization that has happened because they made us commodities. So in our new identity as reclaiming our authentic spiritual self, because I and I are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are perfect spiritual beings. It's the human experience that is giving us the challenges, the testing. You know, when one's now, bow to colonizers, brainwash, and going have a crab in the barrel mentality, that if one of us make it, the other one can't, rather than push I and I up so all I and I can rise together. Now is the time. Let us rise together in unity. That's
Yes,
what the organization of African unity is about for the Africans at home and abroad. Thank you.
Thank you, Empress Moses. Thank you very, very much. We obviously rise in unity with one another. And again, this is not where we end the conversation. There's a whole festival weekend happening. We started off today. Tomorrow night we are busy at Bertha House, Friday from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Please join us for a screening of In the Land of Makai. And then there's also Adwa and African Victory video that will be screened at Bertha House. Please bring the masses. Please bring the young people to engage in this truth about our continent and our people. And then also we will have a concert at the Ras Royal Center in Athlone. There will be an amazing lineup of artists, hip-hop artists, poets. Please come through, which will happen from 6 p.m. And then on Saturday, we have a public lecture by our guest speaker, Prof. Matola Mashege, which will speak about, again, the importance of tying the themes of roots, culture, and heritage and decolonization. And then also specifically speaking on the Battle of Adwa, turning Adwa into a global heritage site, and of Pan-Africanism. And then finally, we also have a beautiful, powerful, and I think all of us should come and be, if you are present in Cape Town, come enjoy the Ngau ceremony that will happen at the Castle of Good Hope. Last year, it was amazing. You need to experience it for yourself. So please bring along friends, family, anyone that needs to be connected to our forefathers and who we are as a person, because we cannot do this work without understanding who we are as people purposefully and intentionally. And then we end off the Adwa with the Adwa parade on Saturday. On Sunday, 1st of March. So please come through. There will also be an honoring of our elder, Mario Wanza, in the Manenberg community. So if you want to come through, please come be in community with all of us. I want to say in my closing remarks is that even though Berlin divided Africa without the concept or the idea of connecting Africans, we and Adwa defended the sovereignty through unity, and Salt River reflects the ongoing spatial consequences that we face today. then unscrambling Africa is not just symbolic work, but it is restructuring the structure of our society. And that is what is important. We need to bring our youth, very important that we bring this message across to our young people. We are all here as people that have been engaged in this concept, but how do we reach this knowledge to our children and to our youth, to our mothers who might not be able to engage in mediums in the way that we are currently? The question is not about whether history matters, but it is about whether we are willing to reorganize power in the way that it needs to, where people are heard, people are seen, and people are cared for in our context and in our, most importantly, in the African context. Aluta, continua, and we are out. Thank you, people, for joining us on our first session today. Thank you. See you guys. Please leave your email address. Please leave your number if you want to be contacted. I know there's been a request from the panelists to leave their details. We can create or add you to the group that we've created with the stakeholders, collaborators. This is ongoing work. And we need to get as many people as possible. Obviously, the next solution is around this festival is how do we get to workshop this in community and in spaces where we reach young people and our communities. Thank you for those who have joined us. Please leave your details. Thank you and have a good evening further. It's evening this side by us. For those who join us from Zimbabwe, from Canada, from wherever you are, thank you for joining us. This work is important. Let's continue to do this in unity through Africa Unmasked. Thank you. Aluta, continue. Greetings, Raspita. See you. Please leave your details. Once again, if you want to join our group, if you want to join conversations for the upcoming festival in the next year, they will be organizing around Africa Day. Africa Day. There's a petition out currently that we need buses as well. And then there will also be a decipher of the Africriel documentary. Then there will also be work around the Heritage Day. And we know we need to get the people involved. So if you want to contribute, please do so. Please feel free to do so. I don't know, I feel like an a person who's advertising, but welcome. It's open for engagements. Yeah, thank you to everyone that was with us today. Raspita.
Vicky, die nou voting vir mense foreign dinge.
We are signing out, people. See you. Go well. I hope to see you tomorrow, Saturday, and then also on Sunday for the Adwa March. Please bring all of the kids. Please bring the young people. Please bring whoever needs this information. Thank you, Etty. Again, the floor is open for engagements with our people whoever needs to engage. Thank you.